This time, Aberdeen. Ferguson floors the old firm.
'Cause I'll stay a wild rover forever and more.
Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt the impossible to rank once and for all who is the greatest team of all time. My name's Graham Dunn, making the case for Oxford United at every opportunity. And joining me as ever is the king of the numbers, very much the Johnny Ball of the football world. It is Jamie Rooney.
Johnny Ball's a bit of a hero, really. I mean, I haven't heard about Johnny Ball for a long while. That's really good. I like that, Graham. Yeah. He was an absolute classic TV hero in the 1980s, where we're going back to now. This is going to probably sound quite strange to most people, but we're going back to a time when, growing up in England as I did, it was common to have a team in England and a team in Scotland, and it was the norm. And yeah, the team I adopted was Aberdeen, and I don't think it was because the glory they were going on, even though it's easy to say that. No, I had a friend whose dad was from Aberdeen at school, a really close friend. We're still close friends now, and there was this just obsession with Aberdeen. So when I was kind of with James at school and we're playing football, I would just get fed the stories of the great Aberdeen side, who weren't that great at the time, but then they became great shortly afterwards. So yeah, I was just in the right place at the right time with the right friends around me to pick up on a great team at that moment.
I mean, oddly, my Scottish team was St Mirren. I don't really know why I chose them. You didn't really have anything tangible. It was kind of, you like the name or kit or whatever it was. But I like St Mirren, ironically, which is, the team that could have been Aberdeen had they not got rid of Alex Ferguson. Yes, we are looking at the fantastic Aberdeen. Unprecedented is an overused word on this podcast, but definitely have unprecedented success. Part of the new firm, as they became known, Aberdeen and Dundee United, and we were blessed to be joined on our Dundee United podcast by Stefan Shaw, and so it only feels right that as we're doing the other half of the new firm, we should welcome back. Hi, Stefan, how you doing?
Yeah, hello guys. Thanks for inviting me back. Just a shame I wasn't an East Stirlingshire fan really growing up, but I was a keen Partick Thistle fan, and I was living through this era very much. I saw Thistle being scalped by Aberdeen on more than one occasion, that's for sure.
Oh.
So Stefan, north of the border in Scotland, did you have an English team during this period?
Yeah, I did. Tottenham Hotspur actually. They were my team. Glenn Hoddle, Ricky Villa, all these guys. Yes, they were my team definitely.
What I like about, actually, when I think back to especially this era, and when it will come through to a particular part we'll talk about, Cup final day was not only a day that you had great kind of coverage of the English final when you're watching that, but you'd also get the footage of the Scottish Cup final at half time. I still remember where I was when I watched that Alex Ferguson interview after the Scottish Cup final, because they did show that after the interesting reaction. And we'll come on to that. But thing of beauty. One of the things I find interesting about them is that they're not minnows in terms of Scottish football, because they are almost one of the most successful Scottish sides. It's just that you had two sides which are unbelievably successful over that period.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue probably they're potentially Scotland's traditionally third biggest team. Certainly in the sort of modern era, I would say. Yeah, they were kind of, the bridesmaids were a while, weren't they? They were kind of top 4, top 5, and then then it all changed when Ferguson came. Yeah,
they'd won one title, I think. They'd won a title
in the 1950s. In the 1950s.
I think in this year, did they win the League Cup in 76, I believe. So I think that's kind of when they, I guess, started. And that was under famous Ali McLeish, of course.
He
did such a good job. He went off to manage Scotland shortly afterwards. Leaving in 1978 for that ill-fated journey to Argentina.
And I think Ali McLeish recommended to Aberdeen, as he was exiting, to say, bring in this youngster, Alex Ferguson, because I think he's got some potential. But Ferguson stuck with St Mirren.
And they went for Billy McNeill, didn't they? Who's kind of, another massive name in Scottish football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in those days, I think Ferguson had brought St Mirren up into the Premier League. It done a good job there, but I guess his stock wasn't so high. Not as high as a legend like Billy McNeil, that's for sure. So I think that was Billy McNeil's first foray into management, and he only lasted a year, I think, at Aberdeen before Celtic came calling, and he wasn't going to turn that off.
And it's quite ironic, isn't it? Because I think Celtic came calling a couple of years after he'd been at Aberdeen because Jock Stein had replaced Ellie McLeod at Scotland. So it's kind of like come that full circle, hasn't it?
Ferguson does well at St Mirren, and actually, I think it's just one of the things about Ferguson. He's at clubs much longer than you think, because actually he was at St Mirren for 4 or 5 years, I think. Fair length of time, brings them up, and as kind of Semi mentioned, that St Mirren's chairman, I think it's Willie Todd, has the slightly dubious honour of being the only man who has sacked Alex Ferguson, which, given everything that he went on to achieve, doesn't look the greatest footballing decision anyway.
Probably just got fed up with him, because I think he was quite a difficult man to be around, I guess. Especially, I can imagine being a chairman and trying to be in control of them. This would have been quite tricky.
Ferguson would have been in his mid-30s then. So he went into management at East Stirlingshire at 32. So when he's taken over at St Mirren, he's still a fairly young guy in terms of football manager terms.
It's not terribly clear why. So it's for breaching, I think it's a breach of club discipline or club something like that. There's lots of different suggestions. It goes to a tribunal, which he takes them to a tribunal for wrongful dismissal. Doesn't win. I did see an interview with Todd, who sort of vowed never to speak about it, but that he'd basically been walking around saying he was taking the Aberdeen job. So I think he'd obviously been tapped up probably, and that seems more plausible. I don't think on football grounds alone, I don't think you could really come up with any decision to sack Alex Ferguson. So yes,
I think the thing that Jimmy touched on there about Ferguson's youth is very important, because I think a bit like Clough as well, he finished his playing career way too early. So not only did he have a lot of energy and ideas, but I guess he must have had a fair bit of frustration as well. He hadn't quite fulfilled his potential. And the next step was to really try and do it as a manager. Not sure if it was St Mirren, it was like managing 2 pubs in Glasgow as well at the same time.
Yeah.
He obviously had energy to burn, really. I think when he went to Aberdeen, he was able to completely focus all his energy there.
I did see one interview with Ferguson talking about it, and it saying, well, the attraction was the chance to manage full time, and you sort of forget that he probably was working part time or doing other stuff. I love the idea that he's running a couple of pubs.
It seemed to be, going back to the 70s and 80s though, even before that, probably in the 60s, it seemed to be the norm that once your playing career finished, and generally this would have been in your early 30s, best case scenario, you kind of transitioned into, a lot of footballers transitioned to managing pubs. It just seemed to be the kind of the career progression. Once you finish your playing days, you go and manage a pub. It's bizarre. I mean, you can't imagine how that would ever be the case these days. I mean, they don't need to go manage anywhere, do they?
It just shows sort of the difference of everything at the time. I do think when he joins Aberdeen, now Aberdeen I think finished second the season that he takes over. So it is a kind of prestigious job to take on. Jamie, Celtic and Rangers at this time, were they? They're still. It's not that Celtic and Rangers are poor versions of themselves, is it? They're still both half decent sides.
I think Stefan can answer that better than I can, but yeah, I think the domination is there throughout the history. I mean, the Scottish League, and I'll let Stefan build on this, but the Scottish League is quite unique. There are other leagues in Europe where there is a duopoly over periods of time, but generally you do get a third or fourth club, like in Turkey and Portugal, and in the Netherlands, where you get a third or fourth club that will have a spell of domination. But in Scotland generally, and Stefan, please correct me if I got it wrong, it's the history of the game has always been the 2 Glasgow clubs. They've dominated with the odd blip here and there.
So something around that period, that's true. I think, Hibs had their golden generation, didn't they? And stuff, and Hearts and other teams come out. But in general, yeah, you're right. Certainly for the sort of late 60s, 70s, moving towards the end of the 70s, then yeah, it was definitely a duopoly. Rangers and Celtic were absolutely dominating. And I think it's quite significant about, I think Rangers in 1978, they won the treble with Jock Wallace. So they were the team really to beat. They were all conquering at that time. And then Jock Wallace left Rangers quite abruptly. And that obviously kind of coincided with Ferguson then moving to Aberdeen. So it's all kind of happened at the same time. So there was a bit of turmoil beginning to happen at Rangers. I think, as we go through the years, you'll see that they actually dropped out, really. Celtic was still very strong. I mean, you could, in the 80s, they won four titles. So it wasn't like, they completely dropped off a cliff. But Rangers kind of did during that early period of resurgence at Aberdeen, and also with Dundee United as well. So it's very unusual that the old firm dominating.
I think what's quite strange when Ferguson comes in, as we saw at Man United, he doesn't instantly make things happen, does it? There's a kind of a period, and actually that first year, and arguably a little bit even into the title-winning season, it's not immediately happening for Aberdeen. I think it's finished kind of mid-table-ish in that first season. And I think maybe I'd sort of read a couple of things about it perhaps being quite difficult for him because he was so young, relatively speaking, and that he didn't necessarily have the air of a manager or the age of a manager at that stage.
Probably a few players as well at Aberdeen that had been around a few years. But like at Man United as well, they took it didn't take long really, but to try and to try and maybe get bring in his own players really. Some of the top stars like Joe Harper, I think, was the main striker, and he left shortly after Ferguson joined. So I think he probably came in and possibly ruffled a few feathers. I think Willie Miller was a good example of that, where he said he came in like a whirlwind really, and some people didn't like it, and other people just got on with it.
Yeah.
He's he's always had a reputation for being strict, but I think that was there from the very beginning. I think that was part of the problem that he may have had in his first season at Aberdeen. I think he brought in methods and training regimes and things the players could or couldn't do. They really kind of tightened down on the strictness. Is that fair to say, Stefan? And that could be the reason why some of the players felt a bit like their feathers were ruffled.
Yeah, definitely. He had very strong ideas. Like going back to Willie Miller again, Ferguson came in and tried to get him to, set up defence in certain ways and so on. Miller had been doing it for a number of years. Now he wasn't happy with it, so he confronted him and actually won the argument. So it could be done, but other players I think would have taken probably a bit more to heart being told what to do and so on. So during this period, I think you're right. Lots of discipline, lots of tough training schedules down on the beach and stuff. And also bringing in quite a lot of young players. I think that was his bit of a blueprint, really. He sort of, over the first couple of years, he was bedding in some of certainly in the midfield, it was very, very young midfield. Those guys would have, run through brick walls for him. One more goal, really.
The beach. I've seen footage of players training on the beach, and you've heard the stories. Was that a thing was that like just the Ferguson publicity stunt to punish the players, or did they really have to go to the North Sea and train on the beach and get in the icy cold conditions if they did things that the manager wasn't happy with?
Yeah, I think it is absolutely. Yeah, I've seen those pictures and videos as well. But yeah, I think so because obviously Aberdeen's right on the coast, so
it's proper tough taskmaster there.
So the Aberdeen players were indulging in cold water mental health procedures way before it was a fashionable thing.
Ice baths of a kind, yeah, definitely. It's funny you mentioned Willie Miller, and I think when you get to, I think one of the similarities between this Aberdeen and the Dundee United side that break through at this period is actually both those sides have this core of players who play a huge amount for them. As far as I can tell, Miller and McLeish played throughout the back. Although I think McLeish actually maybe starts in midfield, but Miller and McLeish are absolutely central as part of that defence. And when you go through the names, Eric Black, Mark McGhee, Neil Cooper, there are these people. They all play. Again, it's almost a side that you could name the 11. I almost don't remember any signings being made. after that initial Aberdeen burst through.
Yeah, absolutely. Central core players throughout, sort of really built on that defensive backbone of McLeish and Miller. I mean, they were amazing. I'm sure Jay will come up with some of the stats later when we go through the years. Some of the seasons when they concede 21 goals or something. It's quite. Yeah. And also these players went on to win quite a lot of Scotland caps as well. McLeish 77 caps, Miller 65, Jim Leighton 91. Real stalwarts in the Scottish game. Keeping great players like Alan Hansen out the side, of course.
Yeah. Willie Miller, I think, is the other fascinating thing about him is he was very obviously a leader from quite an early stage. I mean, he's one of those players who I was amazed. I think he was made captain for Aberdeen in 1975. So he's captain for like almost all of his career, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's a very quietly spoken guy as well. If you hear him in interviews, he kind of leads by example. I think that's the kind of captain he is. Some of the other players like Strachan and Alex McLeish were much more, outgoing and vocal. What you'd expect leaders to be. Willie Miller was much more sort of quiet spoken. What I used to love about him and looking at some old pictures is how he used to lift the trophies one-handed. It was just brilliant. It's just iconic every time he lifted a cup. It was like one-handed. That with a moustache and stuff. It just looked good, doesn't it? Like,
I have to say, I was watching a documentary. You pointed me in the direction of Stefan, and seeing Willie Miller without the moustache just didn't feel right.
No, absolutely.
So the first season is a bit mixed, but it sort of very quickly takes hold, and Ferguson wins the title with Aberdeen in that second season, and by then he's already got the guts of this team together, and again it feels like that's built on Miller and McLeish at the back, but Strachan is an important player in that side, and but I suppose winning this title is all about the belief it gives Aberdeen that anything is possible.
Yeah, I think that was his big thing, was just to be able to compete with the Glasgow clubs. So really going down to like Ibrox and Parkhead and not just going for the draw, but actually to go down and beat them. I mean, he knew that's what he had to do to turn it around. It wasn't good enough just not getting beaten. You really had to start winning matches against them, and he really managed to build up that mentality. I think with the league, with the win really. And obviously, once you've done it once, then that instills great belief in the players and so on. And it also puts doubts into the Celtic and Rangers. They then they're not going to go into steamroller Aberdeen anymore. They have to watch out for them. So yeah, just a change in that sort of outlook, I think, is key to their success.
Yeah, I think it was when Aberdeen won the championship in 1980. I think that ended a run of 14 years where Celtic and Rangers had traded off the championship between the two of them. And also, Alex Ferguson was only 38 years old, which I think at the time was the youngest manager to win the Scottish top tier. I think it even might be still a record now. Yeah, I mean, 38 years old and you've won a league championship is pretty impressive.
And I guess quite unusual as well. So looking at the managers of Rangers Celtic at the time, they would tend to go for sort of ex-players and then stick with them a long time. Because I was amazed that, I was looking through the stats that unfortunately John Gregg was obviously great Rangers player and then subsequently manager. And he stuck with him a long time before they got rid of him, considering the lack of success during that period, which completely coincided with this Aberdeen team. Quite amazing, really. You celebrate these days that you're not going to last in the hot seat at Ibrox for like 5 years without winning the league. As Russell Marston found out.
But Ferguson, just with the Rangers thing, he seemed to have a real bee in his bonnet about Rangers, and I think Stefan, does it go back to the '69 Cup final when Ferguson, a Rangers player, was blamed for Rangers' defeat in 1969 when they lost to Celtic in the cup final? I think that never went away. I think that created almost a chip on his shoulder for wanting to just get the better of Rangers at every opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think in his autobiography, Ferguson was talked quite a lot about the power struggles at Rangers at the time and so on, and how sort of entrenched a club they were, and difficult to sort of progress. And Yeah, he was. I think he was very much hurt by that, and not that he's one to bear a grudge. I'm sure it absolutely gave him that extra motivation. Certainly.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say there was unfinished business between him and Rangers. But I think as well, there's an element. Obviously, Ferguson was a kind of boyhood Rangers fan, and he's from Glasgow. So I think that comes back to that. And it's a really good point, mate, Stefan, about changing the mentality whereby you're not going to be intimidated by going to Glasgow. You're going to go over there. When you play Celtic and Rangers, you're going to compete and you're going to win, and you're actually going to go there. And in that first title winning season, I think they beat Celtic twice. So again, it demonstrates that they can do it when they really need to in the toughest of places. And I think that must go back to we are not going to be intimidated by Celtic and Rangers. And once you've done that changes the whole mentality of the club.
Absolutely, and they're quite a nice mix as well at Aberdeen. They had older players who were really strong characters, like your Mark McGhee, Strachan, and obviously McLeish, to group these guys. They've only been intimidated going to the Old Firm and played. And then similarly, the younger players they wouldn't have known any difference really, because from word go they were achieving things. Yeah, it's that blend really, I think, of the characters who are not going to be cowed and ones who actually too young to know any better. So yeah, that blend really helped.
And I love watching when they win the cup the season. I think they almost every game they need to beat Hibs, they beat them 5-0 from what I could see. But I think they beat Hibs 5.
Yeah, they're all celebrating in front of the fans, aren't they? That open terrace, like the Easter Road. Yeah,
it's brilliant, and that is. I love looking at Ferguson running in there because there's hints of David Pleat at Luton, but it's done. It's not quite done. No one can quite dance like David Pleat, but there's hints of that. But also, it's just you just don't expect it from Ferguson to be doing it, and that's obviously because you kind of seen him sort of gruffly looking in his wrapped up in his coat for the last 30 years.
Yeah, just unbridled joy, wasn't it? Really, that was the moment. I think he must have known that he cracked it. Really.
I think that's what it was. It's not a jig of joy, but it's definitely kind of a fluttering jig of Ferguson. I have to say as well, just going back to the 1980 season, because I've got to give kudos to Stefan. Stefan, you're a much more humble man than my co-host on these things, because obviously when Aberdeen do win their first league title, they lose their first game of the season. So you had a crowbar reference to bring in your beloved Partick Thistle in. You very politely and in a very respectful way didn't do it. I mean, I can safely say if it was Oxford United, we would still be talking about it right now.
Yeah, I've actually written it down as well. A couple of them missed it. That's an open goal, isn't it?
So you'd have actually seen this Aberdeen side play a few times, actually in the flesh.
Yeah, so I've seen them a few times at Fir House, certainly, and lots of times in television. It's actually the only major ground I've never been to in Scotland, actually.
No!
Just because it's so far. It's so far from Glasgow. Yeah. I mean, it's not far in English terms, but in Scotland, it's like other end of there.
Yeah.
We don't tend to travel that far. So I never made it that far. But yeah, I did certainly see them play quite a few times.
Including, did you get to see that win?
I can't remember, to be honest. It probably wasn't that significant at the time, you know.
No, exactly. Yeah, it was only Aberdeen.
Yeah.
So that's their big win. Sort of, there's a bit of a maybe not a hangover season afterwards, but it's not. There's almost a kind of a feeling that normal service is going to be resumed. Celtic win the next two titles, and Aberdeen. I think Aberdeen finished second the following season, don't they? So they're there or thereabouts. But it's difficult. It's a bit after the Lord Mayor's show type thing, and I think this is probably what differentiates this Aberdeen side from Dundee United is that longer period of kind of sustained success, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. They kind of just kept going, didn't they? Building on success.
They did sell Archibald, which I'm sure Stefan would have been really happy about at the time because he went down to Tottenham, I think for over £1 million as well. So, I mean, Archibald was a big contributor back then in that early season. I think he scored 22 league goals. So, he was a key forward. And, Steve Archibald was a great player for Scotland, for Tottenham and for Barcelona. So losing Archibald would have been difficult to replace, but it was still in the early days of when Ferguson was still building. So maybe the Championship, as much as we saw the almost the David Pleat jigger joy from Ferguson, maybe it come a little bit earlier than Ferguson. I mean, I take it, but maybe it came a bit earlier than he was expecting, and he was still building for bigger things to come.
It's just about the Steve Archibald thing. I suppose it just shows that even when you're building a team and they're on the rise, it's just the sort of financial necessities of Scottish football is that, if you have a bid for one of your players of that magnitude, then unfortunately you've got to take it, really.
And sorry, just on the finances, Greg, just curious, it just popped into my head actually. So around about this time, Aberdeen would have been, I mean, the city would have been based around the oil rigs, right? So was there any wealth in Aberdeen? Was it a rich city? Did that bleed into the football club, or was it a poor city but just had facilities with big petroleum companies doing their thing in the North Sea?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I was wondering that myself about why Aberdeen became successful. Was it because it did coincide with the oil boom as well, when Aberdeen was growing in the city, and it was getting a lot of wealth. I don't think it had a direct correlation, as in they weren't owned by some oil magnate or anything. But I think it was just a general, they had a pretty good attendances. There were about 20,000, I think, quite often in the home attendances. Photography was looking pretty good, a bit of refurbishment, but I don't think it played directly into the hands. I don't think it's that significant, apart from the place being buoyant and people sort of feel good and going to the football. But I mean, football in those days was very affordable anyway. The other thing that kind of coincided then was, I suppose, Glasgow wasn't, was going through quite tough times then as well. And if you look at the attendance of Rangers and Celtic, there wasn't as big a disparity as there is, there is now, and there is traditionally. So, but I'm not sure if that was affordability or just because people were, just not really enjoying it. So I'm not sure it played that much into it, apart from, like I say, the sort of periphery effects, I guess. I presume they're paying the players on a par with the old firm. I don't think it was only really when Souness came, wasn't it, in sort of the late 80s that things went to a completely different level, where first Rangers just spent so much money compared to the rest. I think it was a much more even playing field in those.
And this was definitely there was a real sort of path at this time as well of Scotland's top strikers being poached by top English club, Charlie Nicholas, Steve Archibald, Frank McAvenny, all these players who went on down there. And then you get sort of the late 80s or the second half of the 80s, and English clubs are banned from Europe, and they all start going the other way.
Crazy days.
So Aberdeen, they don't win anything in Ferguson's third season, but in the fourth season, in 81-82, pick up their first Scottish Cup. And along the way, I think they knock Celtic out in the... they do it the hard way because they knock Celtic out, and then end up playing Rangers in the final. And this one is a game that Ferguson is able to enjoy slightly more, as they ultimately win in style, but only after extra time, doesn't it? So not only have they won the Scottish Cup, but also there's, which Aberdeen go on to enjoy a pretty unprecedented success on, there's also their first kind of dalliance in European football. I mean, I guess Aberdeen are not a massive name in European football at this stage, but they have a pretty decent run in 81-82.
Yeah, so I think it's worth pointing out that Ferguson has this obsession with European football and the European Cup as it came with Manchester United. And Stefan can cover this better than me, but in the first round of the UEFA Cup, which is called the Europa League these days, there is the incredible Battle of Britain, I think it was, Stefan.
So yes, this was a game against Ipswich then, I believe. So classic Ipswich, Bobby Robson, Arnold Muir and Frank Tyson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're drawn against each other. So you've got Ipswich Town, runners-up, I think, the previous season in the English League versus Aberdeen, runners-up in the previous season. Yeah, and they joined each other in the first round of the UEFA Cup over 2 legs. And Aberdeen come through it fairly well. I mean, considering we know, Graham, because we've talked about Ipswich Town, how great we rated those with the brilliant Mark Horrocks, who came on and talked about his beloved Ipswich Town. But yeah, Aberdeen come through that one. I think they win it 4-2 on aggregate.
That's I absolutely love that. Whenever, and you got it an awful lot. You get it now, but you definitely used to have it. Whenever the English, Scottish teams are drawn together in Europe, it was always the Battle of Britain, which kind of set it up. I do love the idea. Aberdeen v Ipswich is it's quite low. It's quite low.
Fantastic. And do you know what? As an aside as well, just not important, but it would have been a beautiful battle for Adidas.
Yeah.
The replica kit I'm wearing today, it would have been this classic, Adidas logo. Ipswich Town, as we know, had that beautiful blue kit with the pinstripes. Aberdeen themselves had the beautiful red kit with Adidas with the pinstripes. So both teams were wearing beautiful Adidas football kits. So not only you've got this battle of Britain going on, you've got this battle of who can come out best in the beautiful Adidas football kit.
Well, it's even better than that. I found I just sending you both a picture of this because it's so good. It's a battle of. It's not only a battle of Adidas; it's a battle of moustaches as well. Because there's an absolutely fantastic picture of on the pre-match of Willie Miller and Mick Mills shaking hands before the game. It's the thing of beauty. Yeah, couldn't be more 80s.
Yeah. Aberdeen come through the this Battle of Britain with the beautiful moustaches and the lovely Adidas kit, and they reach the third round, which is the last 16, and they lose over 2 legs to Hamburg, which is quite significant, I think, in terms of the story of Aberdeen and Alex Ferguson. I think what it does, it demonstrates where Aberdeen are now. They're pretty much now knocking on the top table in Scottish football. And I think there's an idea that they want to be they want to be at the big table, the top table in European football. And Hamburg, we know, during this period with Kevin Keegan and Horst Husbeck. Yeah. Is that correct? I don't know the pronunciation. Hamburg were a big team. They'd already reached a European Cup final where they lost to Brian Clough's Nottingham Forest. They would go on and win the European Cup a season or two after this particular head-to-head. Yeah, so it's a big deal that Aberdeen are competing with the best in Europe at this particular moment.
And by this time, Aberdeen, Peter Weir is playing for them at this stage, former St Mirren winger, who is certainly, to my mind, was always one of the standout, most fascinating players to watch, a proper old school winger.
Yeah, absolutely. He gave him a dimension thing, didn't he? Just that superb dribbling skills and crossing ability. Fantastic player.
And someone he'd signed him for St Mirren about 2 days before he lost his job there. So he eventually got him. And they spent a bit of money on Peter Weir as well. I think that was potentially a Scottish record at the time. So that there is some money floating about, as you would expect, to have won the title. But it's still, when I look at that side, you've still got a lot of that experience in there. You've still got Ruby playing in there. You've still got it's built off that defensive solidity, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. That was the hallmark of the team, really. Just conceding very few goals, but great attacking as well.
So Aberdeen are going well. They're set fine for what they're going to go on to achieve, but this is only the taster, and it really starts kicking off over the second half. Alex Ferguson's reign here, and we'll take a look at that in our second half. Excellent. So welcome back. We are looking at Aberdeen under Alex Ferguson, and his first 3-4 seasons there are pretty inspirational. Yeah, they win a Scottish Cup. They win the league title for the first time in 25 years. That's decent work. You'd accept that. We've kind of really enter now these next 3 seasons a real sort of glory period, and 82-83. Though they don't end up winning the Scottish title. This really is an unbelievable season in terms of they're chasing on three fronts across the way: Scottish Cup, Cup Winners' Cup, the Scottish League title. This season feels like this is peak Aberdeen.
Absolutely, yeah. There's obviously the strength and depth to compete in so many fronts. Played a phenomenal amount of matches, I think, as well. But probably not that many players. Still kept the core of the team, really.
It's an incredible thing, isn't it? They play. So the Scottish season is 6 games, but with reaching the final of the Cup Winners' Cup, reaching the final of the Scottish Cup, and a small way through the Scottish League Cup, Aberdeen end up playing 24 cup games. So it's kind of 60 games across the season, of which Willie Miller, of course, plays 60 games. He plays every one of them. But it's not just that. Willie Miller plays 60 games, but Jim Leighton, Alex McLeish, Doug Rugby, Neil Cooper, Neil Simpson, Peter Weir, Gordon Strachan, Eric Black, and Mark McGhee all play over 50 of the games. So they play
that's incredible.
High levels, 52, 55. A crazy amount of games. Anyone would think it might take it out of their legs by the time it got to the Scottish Cup final against Rangers, and that your manager may feel sympathetic about it, but maybe not.
There was a real emphasis on making sure that Aberdeen as a football team were the fittest team in the Scottish League, or maybe in Europe. So there was this real kind of drills that were going on in the morning, and I think if there was any dissatisfaction that the players hadn't worked hard enough in the morning session, they were brought in for an afternoon session to do more drills.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember on the fitness level, they're one of these teams that would, there'd always be in matches. There'd always, towards the end of the game, they'd be the fittest team, like you were saying. Absolutely, that was part of it. And like I said, the midfield was very young, full of energy, and I think that kept them going. And also, the pitches would have been pretty poor as well in those days. So that was a factor. I can't remember one of the seasons, but one of the seasons there was loads of cancellations, and they have to play some ridiculous amount of matches, consecutively, because of call-offs for snow and stuff. So yeah, it's even more impressive to play 60 matches in those kind of conditions.
It must be so good for a coach, though, when you can just send out the same players almost every single week, because you get that familiarity, that consistency built in. And obviously Ferguson is keeping them incredibly strict in terms of like making sure the quality is high.
Yeah, it's amazing luck as well, isn't it? You go through all that without incurring too many injuries to key players.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only Kennedy, isn't it? I think it's only Stuart Kennedy ends up getting injured right towards the end of the season. Apart from that, pretty much everyone's available.
So Graham, you're going to go to the Cup Winners' Cup, and we should absolutely talk about that. But I think it's worth noting as well, obviously we've been here before in this season with Stefan when we did Dundee United. So Dundee United win the Scottish League in this season, I think I've got that right. And they win it by a single point. I think Aberdeen finished third, but only 1 point behind Dundee United. I mean, such is the fierceness of the competition going on in the Scottish League right now.
Yeah, fine margins, and Celtic, Dundee United, and Aberdeen were trading places, weren't they?
If you didn't have the distraction of the Scottish Cup final and the European Cup, Cup Winners' Cup final, the league season would be the story, because it's a brilliant thing. There's 1 point between Celtic, Dundee United, and Aberdeen. Fantastic to have two outsiders or newcomers challenging with Celtic. It all goes down to the wire, and the table makes absolutely fascinating. This speaks a bit to your because I don't remember having 3 teams winning so many games. There's almost no draws. A 36 game season. Dundee United winning 24 games. Celtic and Aberdeen both win 25 games, and then Rangers in 4th. They only win 13. Aberdeen win almost double the number of games of Rangers. And there's just no draws. I mean, Dundee United only lose 4 times. And I think probably what gets Dundee United over the line is their record against the rivals. So Aberdeen, I mean, they beat Aberdeen first up, and I think they have the sign over Dundee United, have the sign over Aberdeen a little bit in that year. They're not the only team that has the sign over Aberdeen, are they? Because there is one side, Jamie, that slightly surreally Aberdeen struggled to beat.
Yeah, well, but in the early years of Ferguson, it seemed to be that Morton would have Aberdeen's number all the time. Even when Aberdeen won that championship in 1980, they played Morton 4 times. They'd lost 3. This is a season where they're not losing many games, but they've lost to the same team. And that kind of repeats. Morton just seemed to have Aberdeen's number in this early period of Ferguson's management career. It's quite bizarre how you get these teams that just become, I guess that's where the term the bogey club comes from, isn't it? The bogey team. And Morton definitely seen it. Sorry, Stefan.
I wonder if that was the Andy Ritchie years at Morton. He was one of our fantastic players.
Wow.
Of course he was. Yeah, that could well have been. Aberdeen miss out on the title by a point. But some of, I think in hindsight, they've done incredibly well to stay in it for as long as they have, given what they're doing in Europe. And that's not just only the kind of the physical toll of the games that you're playing and the extra games that you're playing, but it's the mental toll of it, given some of the games they play. Now the cup run seems to be, to begin with, they're just having a bit of a laugh. In fact, I saw one video and they were just basically talking about, we just saw it as an opportunity to get some duty free, really. That's sort of all, the seriousness of it all sort of changes with the quarterfinal against Bayern Munich, isn't it? And that's a massive, massive game for Aberdeen, isn't it, Stefan?
Yeah, it's funny when you look back at these European competitions, isn't it? You look at the teams that were in it. It's kind of random about, who you get. I don't think he was seeded or anything. There's that year there was some big teams, wasn't there? Like Inter Milan. But yeah, Bayern Munich were top of the tree, absolutely. They did amazing. I think the first leg they went out and they drew 0-0, but by all accounts they were all over them, hit the post twice. Ferguson was a bit rattled that they hadn't won, because I think somebody said when the players said it was, in their opinion, it was the finest performance they've had up until that point in Ferguson's reign, because they were so composed on the ball and they were passing it around well. That really they should have got something more from that first leg, which you wouldn't believe that, would you really? Munich can come away with the point. That sounds amazing. So they were definitely able to compete on the level, which is quite amazing, really. And this Bayern Munich, I think it was Karl-Heinz Rummenigge was there.
Yeah, it's really
a top team.
Yeah. Yes, an incredible 0-0, and I was watching a few of the highlights of that, and they do. Aberdeen do have a series of chances in that game, and there's definitely a feeling that it's it's been a missed opportunity, especially when Bayern Munich take the lead pretty early in the return leg at Pataudry, and now Aberdeen equalise for Bayern Munich, go 2-1 up ahead. You have one of these moments which just head into Aberdeen folklore of finishes to games, don't you?
Is that when they brought on the substitute there?
Yeah.
Again, these small things, isn't it? And they had the classic free kick.
The free kick is glorious.
Yeah, the sort of deliberate mix-up.
Yeah.
It just absolutely worked his straight. The Japanese completely bought it. And an Aberdeen player just ready to bounce, just straight off the training field. Fantastic.
I'm trying to think of that. Whenever you see something like that, so for anyone who's not familiar with the goal, the Strachan and one of the other players,
McGhee, I think.
Yes, that's right. And they go to both take the free kick at the same time, and then sort of feign, "Oh yeah, what are you doing?" And then Strachan, almost in a move only ever seen, I think, when Pat Nevin tried to sneak round and take that penalty super early for Chelsea that time. But it's such a sort of cheeky little turn, isn't it? He kind of turns, quickly takes the free kick, and they're all sort of ready for it, and it does absolutely work a treat. And I don't remember, you sort of see that kind of mixed up free kick every now and then, and we saw it obviously with the Barcelona game from the corner and all these sorts of moments.
Yeah.
But I think this might almost be the first time. It's definitely the first time I remember seeing that happening. And so, I mean, it's difficult to track whether it was the first. I'm sure it happened elsewhere before, but that goal absolutely rattles Munich, doesn't it?
Yeah, fantastic execution, wasn't it? I think even the commentator was, he was pretending that he knew it was coming.
And then Hewitt, as won't be the only time in this cup run, scores about a minute later to give Aberdeen a 3-2 win. And this is just kind of reinforces this idea of what Aberdeen can achieve and are achieving. Bayern Munich, they're no longer just beating the best in Scotland, they're beating the best in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. There wasn't like a smash and grab either. It was playing good football, playing at the same level as Bayern Munich and deservedly winning. Must have given them great confidence that they could go on and progress further in the tournament.
This is we're talking about the cup, the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup, which sadly doesn't exist anymore. I think we're poorer for it. But this is an era where the Cup Winners' Cup meant something, because generally you had pretty tidy teams in the tournament. If you hadn't won your league, you would either go into the UEFA Cup or the Cup Winners' Cup. And the Cup Winners' Cup got, I don't know if you remember, guys, the Cup Winners' Cup was given precedence over UEFA Cup. So if you won the Cup but finished second in your league, you qualified for both. You would go into the Cup Winners' Cup. That was the importance of the Cup Winners' Cup. And, Stefan alluded to it. This is a pretty strong field. We've talked about Bayern Munich. Real Madrid are in there. We're going to talk about Real Madrid. Barcelona, Paris Saint-Germain, Panathinaikos, Galatasaray, Spurs are in it in this particular moment. And a pretty tasty John Tossak's Swansea City are in there as well.
It's fascinating because, the quarterfinals, Bayern Munich, Aberdeen, Austria Vienna, Barcelona, Inter Milan, Real Madrid, and then PSG, who probably won't quite. And that, I'm going to ask Jamie to tell me everything you know about the Belgium semi-finalists who Aberdeen play. Watershire?
Watershire, yeah. I actually don't know much about it. Anything I could tell you about, Graham, I'll be looking up on the internet like anyone would be right now. So, yeah, I can't give you any insight into Watershire other than the fact that I could read off the Wikipedia page, which you're literally doing right now.
I'm doing it now. I'm trying to see. Well, it's fair to say that this is obviously their peak period because they won the Belgian Cup in 1979-80 and in 81-82. And they're runners-up in 1954, 55, and nothing else. So this was Aberdeen's peak, and it was obviously Watershire's peak. There you go. So notable players include Lee Clijsters, who is the father of Kim Clijsters, the tennis star. So there you go.
There we go.
So, and actually, after the challenge of Bayern Munich, Aberdeen win this pretty comfortably. They win the home leg 5-1, which sets them up. They are missing a whole bunch of players for the return leg. After, I think there's a bit of they get a bit of treatment in a league game, don't they?
The second leg, did they lose it 1-0? So it's 5-2 in aggregate. But I think Ferguson wasn't he wasn't happy, was he? With that, he was like berating his players for only winning a semi-final 5-2. Not good with that.
The game comes, winning 5-1, you've pretty much won the tie. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to throw that away. And the game, the second leg where they do lose 1-0, and I think it's their only loss in the Cup Winners' Cup in this particular run. It comes 3 days after they're playing Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-final. And it comes 3 days or 4 days before they play Celtic in a critical league game. So Celtic are sandwiched in between this game. So I know Ferguson from United in terms of how he managed games and players. I feel that maybe he wouldn't have, as upset as he would have been losing, I don't think he would have prioritised this fixture over the one before and the one after.
Absolutely not.
There are 3 or 4 regulars who missed the game through injury, but I think it would be absolutely classic Ferguson to rest some players for it and then berate them. So Aberdeen reach the final of the Cup Winners' Cup, where they play, of all sides, Real Madrid. I mean, it's a bit odd for Real Madrid to be in. It feels odd for them to be in the Cup Winners' Cup. I mean, it would seem there would have to be some horrendous flaw in the UEFA algorithm for Real Madrid to fail to get into the Champions League now.
Even odder that Barcelona were in it as well that season.
That's true, isn't it?
I think, I'm just checking out, I think it was Atletico Bilbao and their moment in the sun.
Yeah.
Atletico Bilbao, a very
call.
good team at the time. Yeah, they were champions of Spain. And do you know a very interesting thing about Atletico Bilbao? You probably know this. They only pick players from the Basque region and they stay in the top flight. It's incredible. They're an incredible football club.
Yes, absolutely. You should do a show about him.
I was going to say, that does sound worth doing.
We should.
So we get to the final which is being played in Gothenburg. Now, it's fair to say that the conditions for this game are a bit closer to home for Aberdeen than they are Madrid. It's absolutely belting down with rain.
They probably couldn't have asked for a better venue, really. Because, I mean, it must be on the same latitude as Aberdeen or something.
Yeah.
A bit colder, but the conditions were very much like the northeast of Scotland. Absolutely. Partly lashed it down and they put a cover on the pitch, I think, to try and save it. And yeah, very much touch and go for it was going to go ahead or not. Aberdeen praying it would go ahead, and Real Madrid probably having the opposite view, I think.
I think they could probably, and it must give you some sort of hope coming out of the tunnel. And I think they sort of said, some of the Aberdeen players have talked about this when they saw in the warm up. It didn't look as though the Madrid players necessarily fancied this weather and this pitch.
Absolutely.
And Aberdeen get off to a fantastic start. They take the lead in that they settle quickly, and then there's a bit of a disastrous Alex McLeish back pass. It's not. I've sort of read that it gets stuck in the mud. It's not as disastrous as that, but it is all. You watch it these days, especially with the back pass rule and keepers not being to pick it up. It just feels such an unnecessary back pass.
Yeah, I think it's what compounded it was, I think, he was talking before the match. I saw in an interview about him telling the rest of the team, well, lads, it's going to be very, very sticky on top of the pitch, so just put your foot through it. Do not throw it on the ground. And then as he said afterwards, he just didn't listen to his own advice. And it was a crazy pass. It was the conditions, wasn't it? It was a crazy pass to attempt.
So Aberdeen concede a penalty, which Real Madrid score. And then this one goes all the way into extra time again, by which time John Hewitt is back on the substitute. John Hewitt on the pitch. Now, I don't know if it's just kind of folklore and they're sort of talking about it after. I've seen, I think it's Archie Knox being interviewed about it, saying, Hewitt was awful when he came on. We were genuinely considering taking him off again.
Yeah, I've seen footage of him and Ferguson on the touchline. We're trying to get him to play up the pitch, and he wasn't listening to them. And I think they were really well. I probably couldn't hear them because the rain was absolutely lashing it down, wasn't it? But yeah, no, they were. So they were saying that the story goes, and yeah, they were getting ready to like sub this up, which is the ultimate humiliation.
And then there is the goal itself is wonderful watching back, because there's actually some glorious bit of skill from Peter Weir down the wing to beat a couple of players and then lob that ball down the line. I think it's to Mark McGhee, and then the glorious cross in, and Hewitt can't miss really.
Well, it's an amazing goal. Like you say, Peter Weir beats 2 or 3 players, hits it down the wing, and Mark McGhee, you wouldn't really expect him to be there. Really, you kind of expected to go the other way around, really, him in the middle and Hewitt down the wing. But he does really, really well. I've seen an interview with McGhee, and all he was thinking about was just get the ball in the air, basically, and he hits the most amazing cross. Spanish keeper was a little bit slow coming out, and then Hewitt very bravely just flung himself at it. Yeah, and it was like a perfect goal. Really, just. It was fantastic football. And then the great celebration from Hewitt, sort of frog leg style. You can always remember that. It was such a great moment in the rain.
I think it's beautiful. And when you see the footage of the referee blowing full time, I've never seen someone looking wetter than that referee. He's absolutely coat. And then Ferguson, I mean, he's drenched in that coat. I mean, it really was wet.
I think that just added to it, didn't it?
Yeah. So
it's incredible Aberdeen winning a major European trophy and beating the incredible Real Madrid. And just to point a note, that was the very last time that Real Madrid have ever lost a major European final, which is quite incredible, really, considering how frequent they make these bloody things. But do you know who was in the bench? Who was the manager of Real Madrid that day?
Was it Di Stefano?
It was Di Stefano. Isn't that fascinating? You've got two incredible giants of the game going head to head as coaches in this incredible European final. And they're at completely different points of that journey of their greatness. Ferguson is just slowly on the rise and Di Stefano is slowly on the decline. Yeah, they're two incredible giants of the game. Di Stefano more for playing than managing, if you look at his management career. Ferguson more for managing than playing. It's just an incredible juxtaposition, isn't it? These two heavyweights that are going head to head.
I heard the story as well that Ferguson took him up off the frisky the night before the match. Did you hear that?
No. Wow.
It was something that Jock Stein had suggested to him. He says, what you've got to do is you've got to go and pay respect to Di Stefano, take him a bottle of whiskey and be gracious to him. Make him feel that you're just glad to be there. Your team is so pleased to be in the final. And that's what he did. Just a little bit sort of kidology to try anything, really. And that obviously kind of worked.
That is fantastic. That's fascinating. That just plays into the Ferguson mind games, isn't it? The whole kind of psychological piece that he really does engage with.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's that winner mentality, just, and try everything, really. And he got his reward from it as well. But it was kind of a strange watching the game. The stadium looked a little bit sparse, didn't it? Because of massive stadium. There was only something like 17,000, 18,000 there, and about 12,000 of them were from Aberdeen. So couldn't have been too many Spaniards made the long journey north, I don't think. But some of the footage from the fans going across was great. They hired the ferry. There's 500 people on the ferry, and I think it was a non-stop party to get there. And they also saw an interview with the guy from a fishing boat, and they took the fishing boat 8 days it took to get over there, Denmark. But he actually caught fish as well on the way.
Fantastic!
Wow, that's fascinating.
Straight after the game, the guys were back in the fishing boat and taking the catch from him. So yeah, it's amazing stories.
There was one fellow I saw being interviewed, bless him, and he was definitely in celebration mode even beforehand, because the interview's like, what are you going to do if Aberdeen win? And he's like, drink. And she's like, well, what would you do if they lose? And he's like, drink.
Now, it's worth saying that Scottish clubs don't win European honours that often, do they? So, Jamie, how rare is this in terms of Scottish football?
Well, it's super rare. Celtic, as we know, had won a European Cup. Rangers had won I think a Cup Winners' Cup in the 70s. And I'm doing this off the top of my head because I wasn't prepared for this question. I think that's it. I know Hibernian have done things in the 90s. I think Hibernian were the first Scottish team to ever compete in the European Cup. And I think they went all the way to the semi-finals, if memory serves. Dundee United do go on and win the UEFA Cup, I think it is. But Stefan, keep me honest here. Is it Celtic and Rangers? Are they the only two victories in European football for Scottish teams at this point?
Yeah, Dundee United didn't actually do it. They got to the final.
Runners up, yes. Thank you for correcting me. I should have known this.
Lost to Gothenburg, but they had that amazing run. I think we talked about last time when they beat Barcelona and stuff. Well, they came very close to it, and you've had other Scottish teams get to semi-finals, like Dundee have as well. I think maybe even Dunfermline have, I don't know. But anyway, I think getting far in the competition, but to actually win it is an absolute rarity. Yeah, so it's such a difficult thing to do because, like I say, the knockout nature of it in those days and the chances of drawing a big club are really high, unseeded. So it was pretty tricky, wasn't it, really? So for Aberdeen to do it, I think that makes them almost unique, really.
You make a really good point, because there were no seedings back then. It was just purely all teams in the hat. And Aberdeen, they fall foul of this at the very beginning, because they're one of 4 teams that are drawn out in the hat to play in a prelim round to allow 32 teams to go into the round one properly. So it is pure luck. There is no, like we see now, we're so used to seeing teams seeded. We're so used to seeing balls that can't go in one pot and balls that can't go into another pot. And it's just an absolute fiasco in terms of how the draw is done. But back in the day, it was so simple. Stick them all in the bowl. Whoever comes out, that's who you're playing.
Yeah, no, it didn't even seem to be seeded home or away, did it? It was that was part of it as well. Getting the home leg second, yeah, fantastic. But even now, I think the stronger team tends to be at home second and stuff like that, don't they? So yeah, it was all very much just hope you get a good draw, really, and take it from there.
It is a massive achievement, and it should be understated. They've won the Cup Winners' Cup, which is a big competition in the East, and they've beaten over 2 legs Bayern Munich on the way there, and then they've beaten Real Madrid in the final. It's right up there with probably some of the biggest achievements in terms of Scottish European football, I'd say. Second to the Lisbon Lions.
I also like it continues a kind of thing of unlikely Scottish clubs being the unlikely nemesis of Spanish giants. So there you are, that Real Madrid, Aberdeen, the last team to beat Real Madrid in a European final, and but as we know, Dundee United have never lost to Barcelona.
Lost to Barcelona. That is true.
So 5 days later, or 4 days later, Aberdeen they win, but they miss out on the title. But there's still game 60, which is this cup final against Rangers, Scottish Cup final, which they win 1-0 in extra time, thanks to a goal from Eric Black. Now, we sort of referenced this a little bit a few times on the way, but it is such an iconic moment. The whistle goes, Aberdeen players collapse in their knees. You're absolutely broken after 60 games. And the mental, it's not just the number of games, it's the kind of the places they've had to go to mentally to try and do this, to the highs and lows of it, and to get yourself up to try and beat Rangers 1-0. So, they'd have collapsed in a heap. We've won two cups in the same year. We've won a European tournament for the first time ever. They could earn a break of some kind. And obviously the TV interview comes across. To interview, first words to Alex Ferguson. Disgrace of a performance. It's a disgrace of a performance. Miller and McLeish played Rangers by themselves. That's my favourite line of it. It is a weird reaction, isn't it?
I've never seen anything like it. I've not seen the clip before this week for a long time. My goodness. That interview is quite short, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because he's just asking usual anodyne questions.
Yes.
How did the boys do? And what a great play on. And Ferguson's absolutely awesome. It's unbelievable. Apparently, the players afterwards had celebrating meal at Glen Eagles. Well, it was went to celebrate the cup win, and I think it was Willie Miller, Alex McGhee. I was like a week. It was so bad that Gordon Strachan got up and left. I think even Ferguson, he kind of realised it overstepped the mark at that point, I think. Because I don't think it had any great motivational. He just kind of went for what was on his mind, the kind of character it is. But yeah, that's quite a thing, really.
I think that's a really good point, Stefan, because what is going on in his mind? Is he just responding to the question? I'm sure the report was not expected in an emotional way. Or is it calculated? Is there something else going on in Ferguson's head where he's deliberately sending out this message live on television after winning a cup in the second in one season, just to send a message for what's to come down the line? You just never know with Ferguson, because he is a man that seems to manage his emotions fairly well, and he's an incredibly emotional individual.
Yeah,
but he is calculated, and as we know from the Rangers chip on his shoulder, he holds on to things.
Yeah, so I think certainly later on he does admit that it was he got it wrong. I think that was many years later.
I like to think that when he kind of apologised, maybe that was a bit out of order. That either Miller or McLeish said, "No, hang on a minute, I think we did play them. Where were the other 9?"
Yeah, apparently it was a good joke amongst the players afterwards. They used to bring it up in the training, in the changing rooms all the time about them being the favourites.
Yeah, actually, you're right. It's not necessarily a great look, is it? You're the only two.
No, the rest of the players will live it.
So they have an incredible season in 82-83. The following season, there's another European notable. Now, I normally I poo-poo and shun European Super Cup because I don't really think it's a thing. But actually, what I hadn't really factored in is that so they're playing Hamburg, and of course they are the underdogs. Aberdeen shouldn't win that game either, because you are talking about the winner of the Cup Winners' Cup versus the winner of the European Cup. And so actually winning that competition is quite an achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, I think by all accounts it was taken a lot more seriously in those days because they used to play home and away, didn't they? It wasn't like a one-off game in some strange city somewhere. So I think it was taken more seriously.
And it was played during the season as well. So we're quite used to now the Super Cup being played as the kind of the curtain raiser for the new season. Back in the 80s and even into the 90s, while the Cup Winners' Cup was still recognised and respected trophy to win, this Super Cup would have been played, as you rightly said, Stefan, over 2 legs, but it had been played like in the winter time. So, in November, December would have been the 2 legs. So they would have been arranged amongst league and cup fixtures and other European fixtures that would have been going on at that stage.
So having won, they've got one piece of silverware with the European Cup, which makes Aberdeen a special team in Scotland, doesn't it? So Jamie, I think you can talk about this.
Well, Stefan's already there. Let him go.
Go on, Stefan.
No, so just before I moved out the subject, I was going back to the Willie Miller holding the trophies, the 100 method he had, which always looked iconic. But he hated the European Super Cup because it wasn't a trophy; it was a shield, and it was like he didn't know what to do with it. It was just this little. And apparently, the Aberdeen chairman actually lobbied your effort to try and get a better trophy because it was like in the trophy room, it doesn't look like anything,
So, Jamie, why is this win significant?
So, I mean, it's significant because they've beaten Hamburg. Hamburg are the European champions. Amongst their ranks, they've still got Felix Magath and his cheese and his remedies, managed by Ernst Happel, the great Ernst Happel. So it's not only that they've won the Super Cup, they've beaten the best in Europe. And I think it's the only time now still, and probably could be for some time to come, where a Scottish team has won multiple European titles. So Aberdeen, the Cup Winners' Cup and the European Super Cup is 2. No other Scottish team has won multiple European titles. And Aberdeen, I think, is super proud of this. And we see this reflected on their shirt. The 2 stars that you see now on the Aberdeen shirt are for those 2. I mean, teams wear stars on their shirts for various reasons. I have to bore you if you want, but I won't bother, unless you really want to indulge into that rabbit hole. Aberdeen wear the 2 stars because of the Cup Winners' Cup win in 1983 and the European UEFA Super Cup win in 1983, and that's what the 2 stars represent. Now, there aren't many teams that wear a star for winning the UEFA Super Cup, but Aberdeen do. And I think it speaks quite loud of how proud Aberdeen are for those achievements, the fact that they still now have those 2 stars on their shirts.
Yeah, it's a good fact, that is. I wasn't aware of that, but it's a good one. It also winds up the rest of the teams, doesn't it? So.
Yeah. So this is another absolutely massive season from Aberdeen. So in this one, the league, they win the league, and they win the league pretty comfortably. I think Dundee United holders are probably in a bit of a hangover situation. But again, 36 games, Aberdeen win 25 of them, and 4 of the game, that's almost 25 out of 32, because it's actually the last 4 games, by which time I assume the title is won, 3 draws and a defeat. So they are absolutely steamroller it and very deserved winners on that. But they also get to the semi-final of the League Cup. They also get to the final of the Scottish Cup, and they also get to the semi-final again of the Cup Winners' Cup. So this time they play, I think it is 63 games, if my maths is correct. In this case, it's almost literally another league season on top of the league season. It's absolutely crazy. Willie Miller plays just the 60 games again this season. I mean, when you look at Willie Miller and his record over his period, and I know that I keep talking about Miller, and there are lots of other players who contribute massively, but Miller plays an unbelievable amount of games. He's just a phenomenon in terms of his fitness and his ability to keep going, isn't he?
Yeah, Mr. Consistent, wasn't it? It was absolutely. And yeah, it's able to keep injury free and also, not too many bookings either for centre back. Almost never present. Yeah,
and another one team player, only one club in his career, Aberdeen.
I mean, this season was amazing fun. This almost surpassed the previous season. I think they were, winning the league, semi-final of the Conquerors Cup, and they only went out in the semi-finals as well to Porto. They're a good team. I think it was possibly getting towards the high point, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, the league form is incredible. 80% of points available they take. It's just staggering. And they go on and better it the following season. And just to give you context, this is 80 points of points one that are available in Scottish football only happens in rare occasions, and it's always Celtic or Rangers, but it's not that often that would happen. The most exceptional season is the 67-68 season, where Celtic take almost 93% of the points available. They win 30 out of 34, they draw 3, they lose 1. I mean, that is an incredibly special season. But what Aberdeen are doing at the moment, not only are they taking on the Old Firm, the two Glasgow teams, they're winning the league, and they're winning the league in ways that only the two Glasgow teams have done in a very rare season.
Yeah, no, definitely so. I'll go back to Willie Miller. Just we'll edit this round a bit. I knew there was a thing. So between 1973, so his first season for Aberdeen, he plays one game, and then his breakthrough season, he plays in 73-74. He plays 46 games, and then the next season he plays less than 40 games is 1988-89. 15 years on.
Wow.
15 years he plays at least 40 games a season, often 50 plus. I mean, he's just model of consistency.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't think of a player who goes. He plays the best part of 800 games for Aberdeen, but just over this period, and he's doing it as captain as well for probably 10, 12 years of it as well. He's just so central to this side. As you say, they are, by this stage, Aberdeen are the real deal, and they go on and win the league title again the following season in 84-85. And by this point, it's starting to look, and I think I saw in one of the documentaries I was watching, I think it was Willie Miller saying something like, we just thought this was going to go on forever. Because at this point, they do look, it feels so sustained, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But I think possibly the end of 84 is when Strachan went south to Man United. And I think McGhee went off as well, didn't he? So I think it was then, probably the real classic team was beginning to change over. And then Ferguson, by all accounts, he was kind of relishing it. He was able to, let's rebuild again. So he started, get players in like Billy Starr and others to try and emulate what went before.
I don't know if you saw it. He just reminded me of when I was doing the research for this, I saw a clip of Gordon Strachan. And he goes down to Manchester United. And I think Ferguson offered and then takes him down to do the deal. So basically hold his hand. And I think they have this chat afterwards where Strachan signed for Manchester United and Ferguson's then maybe sharing more of a player. Now he's an ex-player than he would if he was playing for him under Aberdeen. And he was like, I'd only ever leave Aberdeen for two clubs, and that's Manchester United and Barcelona. And Strachan, who's just signed for Manchester United, goes, well, I hope it's Barcelona.
If you're Strachan, you must have such mixed feelings. You know it's going to be good for you career-wise having him there. And part of him must have been enjoying some time off from him. It's interesting, actually. So, obviously, when Ferguson does leave and go to United, he does tend up because obviously Jim Leighton follows. I think he does try and sign McLeish as well, but that one doesn't come off. But what's clear is that once Ferguson goes, the magic has gone from this.
Yeah, very difficult to sustain it. I mean, ultimately, I think the main ingredient is Ferguson, undoubtedly, on the team. So when he goes, it's going to be very difficult. But they fell off, but they didn't fall off the cliff. I don't think they were second loads of times. I think afterwards, remarkably amount of times. I think William Miller took over the reins, didn't they, for a period? And they're okay, but yes, world trophy. But yeah, it was never going to be the same again.
No, and I think you're then the kind of financial mismatch with Rangers and Celtic, especially Rangers at that point, starts to kick in. So you need, plus also, I think that team that has, and a bit like happened with Dundee United, that team that the beauty of having a really fixed, solid team that all played together is it also grows old together. So, one or two players get sold off and then one or two are sort of towards the end of their career, and it's maybe they're not quite able to, you just can't sustain. You do have to keep renewing teams.
I think it'd have been difficult. I mean, it'd been interesting if Ferguson had stayed. They hadn't gone to United, if they'd have done the same. Because obviously United had quite a number of refreshes of his teams. And it was something he seemed to relish through. I just wonder if it stayed for another 5, 6 years if there'd been a second dynasty. I mean, it might have completely surprised you because that's the nature of the way he managed. For mere mortals, it was always going to be very difficult.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, we should get to ranking this team. I guess maybe before we do, or maybe no. Actually, we'll do it as part of it, Jamie, because I'm sure you have some numbers behind just how good they are that you can probably share as part of it. But as a reminder, 5 categories of greatness: all-time greats to the top, true greats, touch greatness in the middle, edge of greatness, and blink of great at the bottom of the pile. Jamie, where are you going?
So in the 6 full seasons that Ferguson's there, because the 7th is a part season, Aberdeen win 10 trophies, major trophies, 3 league championships, 4 Scottish FA Cups, 1 League Cup, a European Cup Winners' Cup, and a European Super Cup. I mean, he's broken the old firm dominance, which is something that never happened before and has never happened since. So he's really changed the shape of Scottish football. They're winning league titles with, the 2 seasons I mentioned, 80% points won that were available. And then the following season, 82% of points that are available they take to win the league title. I mean, this is just stuff of incredibly high standards. We haven't even spoken about I don't think we mentioned the League Cup. We've skipped past the last the Scottish FA Cup they win because they are winning. Their frequency of winning stuff in this period is ridiculous. We've tried to narrow it down to the odd championship, the Cup Winners' Cup and the Super Cup with the odd FA Cup thrown in there. But they're winning trophies every single season. And if they're not, as you've already mentioned, they're competing and they're getting to the latter stages or they're finishing in the top 2 positions. I mean, Ferguson is just incredible. He is the reason, and Stefan already alluded to it, he is the reason why Aberdeen are super strong in this particular moment. And they've created a new order. He was rightly regarded as probably the most promising young manager, and he was a young manager in the mid-90s. And then it's just an incredible story. And I don't feel in my lifetime, and I hope I'm wrong, this will ever be repeated in Scottish football. I'd love to see Hearts right now go on and win 3-4 championships over the next 4 or 5 years. That would be incredibly refreshing, I think, for Scottish football. Forgive me, Stefan, for saying that. I'd love to see Partick Thistle go into the Premier League and win a couple of championships. That would be wonderful. Ranking this team, I think, is pretty easy. I can't look beyond the top tier because it just feels like everything about this is all-time greatness. And I think any Aberdeen fan of this era would put this in a bracket of its own in terms of the greatness that they experience. So, yeah, all-time greats. I mean, we seem to be rating all teams in all-time greats, apart from Manchester United last week. What the hell's that about?
Stefan, what do you think?
Well, I think it was a good summary by Jamie there. It's all about the stats, really, isn't it? I think when we did the Dundee United one, then it was more of a, I guess, sort of rags to riches story over a brief period. And I don't look back in the Dundee United team with great fondness just because of the way it happened.
Yeah.
With Aberdeen, though, growing up at that time, to be honest, they were too relentless for me, really. And actually, it wasn't like looking back now and thinking, well, they were wonderful. It was more like, I hope somebody beats them because literally they were at every single final. And it did get monotonous after a while. So I never had any massive fondness for them growing up, apart from the European night, which is amazing. And that European night, certainly Scottish teams, it was like they represented Scotland, really. That you probably wouldn't get with a Rangers or Celtic. So on that basis, then, just the fact that they were so unrelentlessly good. I think we had to them all-time greats,
Yeah, I think there is interesting things you both said. Absolutely strike home. I was with you, Stefan. I didn't like Aberdeen at all. I think I was hoping that St Mirren would come up on the outside, but I think Dundee United you could get on board with. Aberdeen, they were relentless. They were winning everything, and it is incredible that level. And so you have that. And Jamie, when you're talking about, we were skipping over finals, whole bits of them, and it really reminded me of doing Brian Clough's Forest, and there are so many similarities of it, right down to the level of honours and silverware and success that they have in this. They are just incredible. One other number to put it into some kind of context. So Aberdeen and Dundee United win the title 4 times in 6 seasons between them over this period. Aberdeen obviously 3 times. Outside of those 4 years, it's 54 years. 54 years before the Kilmarnock. This is the next one. So there hasn't been one since. Aberdeen are the last team to do it and do it for them. I just don't think you can look past all-time greats because of this is no blip, this is no one-trick pony. 3 these titles, a European title, and by the way, he goes on and dress rehearsal for pretty much what he does over the rest of his time. So I think we have to say Alex Ferguson's Aberdeen, all-time greats. An all-time great again. We're dishing them out all over the place. Well, that has been brilliant. Stefan, thank you so much. One day we'll have you on to not talk about a Scottish team. It doesn't always have to be a Scottish side. We like to pigeonhole you.
I don't mind them. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for inviting me.
Excellent. Jamie, thank you so much as ever.
Thank you. And extend the thanks to Stefan. That was fantastic.
Excellent. Okay, so we've had, I think we've had 4 all-time greats in the last 5 episodes. Can we make it 6? Well, we are going to be doing Harry Redknapp's Bournemouth, who put Man United out of the FA Cup in 1980-something. I think that one will be a stretch, but we'll be back with Shocks special next week.